This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview. Joining us today is Rick Mazer, the President and CEO of Forum Energy Metals, and Dr. Rebecca Hunter, the Senior Geologist who was only recently appointed. So welcome to you both. Rick, let me come to you first, of course, just on the appointment of Rebecca that was announced today. Could you just shed a little bit of light on this news?
Yeah, Mark. Something that your viewers may not know, Forum explored for uranium in Nunavut during the last cycle. And since then, we've been keeping our eye on that ground in that area and noticed that Cameco dropped some ground where they discovered 2 uranium deposits. And Rebecca Hunter was the project manager for Cameco at that time who made those discoveries. So we staked 65,000 hectares of ground that was formerly held by Cameco and staked those 2 deposits. So it's been a great acquisition for Forum. So I immediately reached out to Rebecca. We got to know her back then, and she helped us out on a consulting basis. And in the last 6 months, we've really got to know her well. And she's just a brilliant geologist, and Forum is very, very busy with a lot of projects in the Athabasca and now Nunavut. So we really needed some help, and we're glad to have her on the team.
Excellent. Well, let me bring in Rebecca now. Hello, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us today. It's the first time that we're speaking, so thank you very much for your time. Well, congratulations, first of all, on the appointment at Forum Energy Metals. Before we get into just discussing the project, the Nunavut Uranium project, I wonder if you can just perhaps introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So one of the things is I was the project lead on the Thelon project that Cameco managed back between 2005 and 2016 or 2014 or so. And so I was a part of those discoveries. I was leading that team and a part of that. And then started during that time as well, I started a PhD on the geology of those deposit areas, looking at kind of the structure and just the uranium mineralization itself. So I've kind of have a pretty broad knowledge of this area, from kind of grassroots exploration to the drilling, and then also the more academic side.
Excellent. Okay, so you know the project very well, being part there of the discovery team at Cameco and doing your PhD on this project. I mean, you don't really get much more better than that, really, to know the project inside out. So that's good to hear. So we have a presentation that we can go through, and of course there was an update last month from Forum on this project, on the Nunavut Uranium project, that is adjoining Orano's Kigavik project. So could you perhaps just take us through and give us a little bit of background on that deposit and why it's a good acquisition for Forum Energy Metals?
Do you want me to go through the presentation, or?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll get into that, I guess, with this presentation. So I guess one of the things to start here is just kind of talk about the bigger picture a little bit about, just the importance of unconformity deposits. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, of course, is that they're really high grade and they're just sought after. And one of the things to really point out here is that you've got kind of 3 main basins in the world that have these proven economic unconformity type deposits that are large and really sought after. And of course, you have the Athabasca Basin, and some of those big giants like MacArthur and Cigar and Arrow and whatnot. And then you have the MacArthur Basin in Australia with Jabiluka and Nabarlek, etc. And then the other basin, of course, is the Thelon Basin. And the Athabasca and the Thelon are almost identical in their character, in their and age and everything. And the only really big difference is that the Thelon Basin just hasn't had that sustained exploration that these other basins have. It's basically kind of been fits and starts where they get, 3 to 5 to 8 years max, and then they basically go in care and maintenance and are forgotten for another 10 years. So it just doesn't have that sustained exploration that these other basins do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And this unconformity, that doesn't mean something unusual. It just means that it's the definition is deposits that are large and high grade. Is it effectively that?
Yeah, and I guess the unconformity comes in because these deposits kind of form near, either at or near the unconformity between these kind of Proterozoic basins and the older rocks underneath. And so that's kind of where they get that name. But the special thing about the way that the fluids move in these types of deposits is that you actually get these really large grade accumulations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I like the title of the slide there, the next Athabasca, and I believe the news release did say that the Thelon Basin is the closest analog to the Athabasca Basin. So I wonder if you can perhaps just take us through in a bit more detail.
So yeah, basically the Athabasca is this large Proterozoic basin of a certain age, with like 1.7 billion. But essentially the Thelon Basin is the same. It has the same age rocks. It has the same type of structures, and those are with the big fluid conduits that happen. And it has the similar just geology in general. So there's no other basin in the world of that size that is the same.
Okay. And prolifically underexplored, as you say. Well, hopefully that is about to change.
Yes, that's what we're going to hope to do. And so this slide here is just a bit delving into a bit more of the project. So in green is the newly staked ground that Forum is staked.
Mm-hmm.
And then just for reference, the orange is Orano's project leases. So basically we're just kind of surrounding all of that. And the biggest takeaway from this slide is that Forum staked this ground, and it was formerly held by Cameco, all this ground, most of this ground. And they spent about $150,000 to stake this ground. But Cameco, when they were there from 2005 to 2012, they spent, upwards like tens of millions of dollars to work that ground. And they found, 2 high-grade deposits that are still undelineated, as well as numerous other zones that still require a lot of follow-up and are very prospective.
Okay, interesting. So it was Cameco, is it? Was there any reason why they still don't own it and it came up for staking?
Essentially, the markets, when Fukushima happened, the uranium price just started to tank, and they had to consolidate, and they consolidated all their projects all over the world, and Thelon was also one of the casualties because it's expensive to work up there. That's no secret, and so they let it go.
Okay, well, if they spent an awful lot of money on there must be, what did you say, 80 million Canadian dollars, I presume that is. That's an awful lot of money. There must be a huge amount of data there that you can use.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had four major drill programs, 5 actually. One was a small, and so we got all this drill data, many drill holes, lots of geophysics, and most of it is in the assessment report, so it's all public knowledge. And so it's just basically going through that and reevaluating it and then building on it.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
Yeah, and then the only other thing to mention here is just kind of the logistics.
Mm-hmm.
And so the closest community is Baker Lake, which is kind of to the east of the project there. It's about 100 kilometers from the project. And it's accessible by sea and air, so it has a good airstrip that you can bring in some pretty big cargo planes if you needed to. And then the most cost-effective accessibility, of course, is by barge because it's connected to Hudson Bay. So you can bring in barges from Montreal and Manitoba to bring in equipment.
Okay.
And then the other development that's in the area, of course, is Agnico Eagle Mines has been there for over 10 years, developing their Meadowbank and Amaruq deposits. And so that's a gold project. So they produced around 370,000 ounces of gold since 2021. And then, of course, Orano's project is there. And the logistics of working there, there's no roads, so it's all helicopter supported. We're fixed wing supported. And then to bring in heavy equipment, one of the most cost-effective ways is to use kind of snowcats in the winter and bring in big sled trains. So,
Okay, so you've got good access. That's good to hear. That's always a good positive.
yeah.
Okay.
And then this next slide, really just kind of delving a bit more into the actual project. So all the kind of the potential of the area. So all the red boxes are the basically grids of interest and the deposits as well. Just for reference, the pink polygon there again is Orano's project leases, and then basically Forum has all the ground around it. And so just to start off, you got Tadygak and Kavik, so they're kind of in the central there. Those are the two undelineated deposits. And what's really great about them too is that they're quite shallow. So the mineralization discovered to date is at surface. Some of it's right at surface to, I guess the deepest it goes is about 450, but most of it is under 350. And so it definitely has open pit mine potential for those two zones that have been discovered already.
Okay.
And yeah, and then some of the grades just for reference too. So Tadygak is actually quite high grade, very comparable almost to some of the Athabasca deposits, and definitely on par with everything that's been found at Kigavik. So the Orano stuff.
Okay. So this is data from Cameco. So this is looking pretty interesting. Interesting. It's almost a very Swedish word to use, but exciting maybe, or promising is probably a better word.
Yes, very
Okay.
promising.
Okay.
Like really good grades over significant widths and undelineated. So I mean, this basically had 3 main years of actually drilling into this stuff, and it wasn't our primary focus. So definitely more to do, and then the rest of the red boxes are just highlighting all these other areas, including Ira. It's another discovery, just a prospect, no mineralization, but just a really good alteration, really good geochemistry, and it's an area that actually has Thelon formation preserved. So I guess one of the things to mention is that all the Orano deposits so far they're all unconformity related, but they're in the basement rock. So they're the basement hosted variety. And a lot of our project too is within the Thelon formation. And so you have some of these grids that actually have the ability potentially to have mineralization at the unconformity. So more of those classic unconformity deposits like Cigar Lake or the many others that are in the Athabasca. And so it'll be a huge part of our exploration too, is to kind of sleuth out some of that potential and potentially find one of the monsters out there.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, thank you for that. Do you have some more slides?
Yes.
Okay.
And so this is the Tadygak zone. So just kind of delving into the Tadygak area. So in blue there is the main anomaly where Tadygak is in. And so it's quite large. So it's about 1.5 kilometers long by about half a kilometer wide. So it's quite significant. And that anomaly is basically clay alteration associated with, kind of the uranium mineralizing system. And so our big goal is to develop a 43101 resource on Tadagak. So far on that grid, you can see all the yellow dots there. Those are the drill holes to date. And so it's mostly been focused in that southwest quadrant, and that's where the west and main zones of Tadagak have been discovered. So then we kind of have a little back of the envelope sort of non-compliant resource of about 8 million pounds between those two pods with over 1% grade. So the real plan here is to drill off the rest of that anomaly systematically, as well as do some geophysics to kind of sleuth out the structures a bit better, and so we can target the most effectively and smartly in that big anomaly.
Okay.
And yeah.
So this is your, that was my next question, was the exploration plan. So this is the exploration plan. You've already gone through the data, you've already prepared what you're going to do, and drill these sort of drill fences, just like fence posts, isn't it? Where you go along like that. You can see the lines there. Yeah, like a fence post. So why have you decided to take this approach to exploration? What factors have determined that this is the best method, in your opinion?
Well, it's still all preliminary, but one of the tricks here is, unlike a lot of deposits in the Athabasca that are kind of chasing up kind of graphitic horizons, one of the differences here is that there isn't graphite, and so you can't target using these really nice EM methods. And so the structures and the way these deposits are formed are fairly steep, and they're complicated. And so in some ways you need to drill a lot to kind of sleuth them out, because you don't have the standard geophysical techniques to target them.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons. And drilling the fences is really good, because then you can kind of go through the structures, and then you can figure out where everything is better.
Okay. So, I mean, of course, there's been a lot of exploration done here. So I don't want to say this is early stage, but it's earlier stage exploration. This is kind of the first stage. Is that fair to say? And then the next stage will help you delineate further where you can focus?
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's mid-stage. A lot of my thesis too, I delved into kind of the setting of these deposits as well. So hoping to use some of that knowledge to target this more effectively. And and you get some more geophysics. Like, we need to think about this too a bit more innovatively, and maybe we can sleuth out some of that as well using some new methods, because it has been about 10 years since we've been working up here.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. So get some geophysics and yeah, start to build a picture of what's there that will then enable you to do some more targeted drilling, presumably at the latter stages.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so just initially think to get an understanding. Okay, that makes sense. Excellent. Okay, anything else that you can show us?
Yeah. So I guess the only other thing to point out here is that, given the size of this anomaly, like, the potential here is just really large, and Form really believes that, this deposit, the Tadagak area, has the potential to host, a zone at least as big as Andrew Lake, and that's one of the main deposits in the Kigavik project, and it's about 60 million pounds, and so that's kind of what we're focusing on.
Okay.
And then this slide here just shows again some of the mineralization. So the black here, of course, is uraninite and coffinite, kind of a mixture, and it's all structurally hosted. So you can see the mineralization is kind of along these fractures and brecciation. And again, just to highlight some of the grades at Tadagak, which are, quite significant. So you've got, 1% over almost 10 meters, and grades of 2.5 over 8. So just really nice mineralized intercepts, including grades up to 24% locally over a smaller width, so about half a meter. So really on par to what you're seeing in some parts of the Athabasca as well, which is really encouraging.
Okay. So, and what are we exactly seeing in the core there? We're looking at the black lines.
Yeah, the black lines and the black blobs are mineralization.
Okay.
And
Mineralization of.
in this case, it's a gneiss, a basement unit. So a politic gneiss is quite clay altered.
Okay.
And then these fractures and breccias of these structures of cut in and precipitated uranium.
Okay. So what is it you're actually looking for? You're looking for the fractures and to try and because as I understand from past interviews I've done with Rick and Forum, that uranium is moved. It's precipitated through is the word, isn't it? So is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Is these kind of fractures and then telltale trace elements perhaps that are left behind?
Yeah, so we're basically, this is basement hosted stuff. So you've got these fluids that have percolated down into these gneisses, these basement rocks, and accumulated in these structures, which are the fluid conduits. The fluids are moving through these disruptions in the rock. And yeah, so that's where the mineralization precipitates. And that's what we're looking for, is where you get these larger structures where you get lots of it.
Okay, well, thank you for taking us through that. Oh, yes, okay, you have one more slide. I was going to ask you what are the timelines looking like, so it looks like this is going to cover that.
Yeah,
Actually, could we go back to that slide, Rebecca?
Mhm.
One thing I think your readers or your viewers should recognize is that a 1% uranium deposit is 20 pounds of uranium. At $60 a pound uranium, that's $1,200 per ton rock. That's like a 1 ounce gold deposit being mined by open pit. These things are very, very, very rich, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, that does help, Rick, actually. That does help, I think, put that into perspective.
All right. And yeah, so this is just the last slide, just to kind of go over what we've done and what we plan on doing. So in 2022, we really just started our community consultation meetings, getting into the community there, the closest community, Baker Lake, and introducing ourselves. We also selected a camp. So we have a really good camp location, which also has a nice tundra airstrip right within the footprint. And looking at the historical core that Cameco drilled, and just making sure it was all in good order, and it is. So it's all really good, and it could be resampled also if need be, and definitely to look at and review. We did a ground gravity survey and an archaeological study. Again, the archaeological study was kind of in concert with our permitting process and doing our due diligence there. And then we did some additional gravity, which is a really good geophysical method for these types of deposits, kind of finding the alteration halos that where the mineralization is. And then procurement and logistical planning just for 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then for 2023, the big plan is to get those drills up there, get two, hopefully, if we can, our camp constructed in early spring, and then start about 75% of our drill budget. We hope to really start the delineation at Tatagac and really sleuth that out and build a resource. And then the rest would be to test a few other high priority targets, and there's many, so it'll be hard to choose which one to focus on, and any additional geophysics as necessary.
Okay. Excellent. Well, that sets out very clearly the exploration plans there with a timeline, and of course what you're going to be doing, what you're looking for. It sounds very ambitious. Rick, I need to ask the very boring question of, well, Rebecca did allude to it's an expensive part of the world to be exploring. So from the corporate side of it, are you prepared?
Yeah, well, it is a little bit more expensive to explore in Canada's north, but the prize is very, very rich. I mean, the geological potential is huge on this project, and these kind of opportunities only come around once in a lifetime. So we're looking at a number of ways that we can finance this. One way is to option it out to a joint venture partner, and we've had a lot of interest in that in that kind of a model. We're looking also at perhaps spinning it out ourselves as a separate entity and get it financed privately. And then there's also opportunities to perhaps vend it into an existing listed company that is well financed or can raise the financing. In which case the shares would be distributed to our shareholders as part of a disposition. So there's a number of things that the board of directors are looking at to advance this project, and I can tell you that in all honesty that there is a lot of interest by the financial community and by the exploration community in this project. So stay tuned.
Okay, well, we will stay tuned. So it looks like, yeah, it's not going to be solely a forum project then. It's potentially looking for partners there quite early on, but you're already seeing lots of interest.
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Well, I hope to see some further news and some media, hopefully, as the camp gets constructed there. You've made quite a compelling case, I think, today, both Rick and Rebecca Hunter, senior geologist. Rick, just on if you're seeing that there's lots of interest there, what maybe just a few words on the uranium market. People must be feeling confident. How's the uranium market performing?
Well, Mark, there's a lot of interest in the investment community right now in uranium. I think the outlook is very good for nuclear energy in the future. It has to form a very important mix in energy for the future to reach the goals of net zero 2050 in the world. And so there's a lot of demand out there for and acceptance for nuclear energy, I believe, and that's going to result in a higher uranium price. There's a security of supply issue as well, with 40% of enriched uranium that is the fuel that goes into nuclear reactors around the world coming from Russia. There's a security of supply issue there too. So we're seeing a lot of interest in developing Western sources of supply for uranium and nuclear fuel.
Yes, well, I would tend to agree. I think the world will wake up to the potential of uranium. Although just this week, I think in Belgium, a nuclear plant was decommissioned because it was part of an agreed principle of I don't know, some kind of green initiative that they would phase out these nuclear plants. But I wonder how long it will actually be phased out for, particularly if we're going to bring in coal back to keep everyone warm in this winter that is fast approaching, particularly in Europe and Great Britain. Going to have quite a few problems there, I think, and they'll react too late. But it's got to be good for uranium, for nuclear power, and of course for the green renewables as well, and the metals associated with that. So I think
also, Mark, on the European front, the last three nuclear plants in Germany that were part of a phase out, the Germans have reversed that decision, and those three nuclear plants will continue to operate to provide power for that country as well. There certainly is an energy crisis going on, and nuclear is going to solve that crisis in the near future, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you both. Dr. Rebecca Hunter there, the senior geologist recently appointed to Forum Energy Metals, and of course the president and CEO, Rick Mazer. Thank you both very much for your time, and I'm sure we'll be catching up again in the not too distant future as things develop on this project.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.